The crowd roars once again, shaking the grand arena of Walpurgis. The blood spilled in the first match is still fresh, with Tomo Gozen standing victorious amidst the silence of a fallen foe. The scent of iron and death lingers heavily, yet the tournament allows no rest. The next battle begins at once. From above, a new figure descends onto the towering stage, heralding the start of the second bout in this merciless war of witches. The audience roars louder, their voices shaking the very foundation of the arena. The announcer, standing tall on the massive stone platform, feeds off the electrifying energy, her pulse racing in sync with the crowd's frenzy. All eyes shift toward the colossal gate, its ominous carvings glowing with a sinister pink light. Slowly, the massive doors creak open, spilling thick fog into the battlefield. A thick fog blankets the arena as the cheers of the crowd fade into hushed anticipation. From beyond the colossal gates, a grand sight emerges, a line of armored soldiers, their heavy steps synchronized as they carry an enormous palanquin towering like a miniature fortress. Every resounding footfall echoes authority and awe, pressing down upon the hearts of those watching. The spectators hold their breath, for within that palanquin resides the legendary witch, the woman said to have once ascended to the pinnacle of power, a figure immortalized as the supreme ruler in the annals of human history. A flash of history takes the audience back to the 7th century, within the Grand Tang dynasty. At the tender age of 13, the young girl entered the palace as one of the emperor's concubines, a fate that should have bound her to a gilded cage for the rest of her life. Yet her eyes never dulled, burning with the ferocity of a tiger waiting for its prey, she patiently awaited her chance. Step by step, with cunning and ruthless resolve, she climbed higher. Cries of treachery, whispers of scheming, and the bloodstains of murder became the stones paving her path. Amidst the roaring cheers of the crowd, the grand palanquin came to a halt, flanked by armored guards standing in unyielding formation. From behind the golden engraved curtains, the echoes of history seemed to resound. She was no longer the concubine bound by palace shadows. She was the woman who defied every limitation of her time. In an age where women could not even dream of the throne, she seized it with her own hands. Her feat was immortalized as both miracle and menace, making her the one and only female emperor in the vast annals of China's history. Her gaze was sharp, cold, yet brimming with undeniable power. She was Wu Zetian, the one and only woman in history to claim the throne of China as emperor. Now, her presence in the Walpurgis battlefield was not just the return of a legend. It was the arrival of a menace to any who dared stand in her way. The arena buzzed with cheers and whispers as Wu Zetian strode in with unmatched grace. Some spectators marveled, while others scoffed at the grandeur of her palanquin, dismissing it as mere vanity. Yet her piercing gaze remained unshaken, cold, commanding, and regal. From the high stands, a figure cloaked in demonic allure observed with a faint knowing smile, Lady Agrat, the Queen Devil, watching the spectacle unfold with great amusement. Wu Zetian cast her eyes around the grand Colosseum, her expression sharp with disdain before uttering a chilling remark, declaring this place unworthy of her greatness. Wu Zetian lifted her gaze arrogantly toward the sky, her voice dripping with disdain as she declared the arena beneath her dignity. Yet, the atmosphere shifted when the announcer's voice echoed, heralding the arrival of her next opponent. The crowd erupted with anticipation, eager to witness the clash of titans. From behind the colossal gates shrouded in mist and brilliance, a resolute footstep struck the ground, the sound sharp and unwavering. In 15th century Europe, the 100 Years' War ravaged France, as defeat after defeat at the hands of the English left the kingdom stripped of nearly all its lands. Yet, amidst the despair, a humble peasant girl emerged, claiming to hear the voice of God guiding her. With a banner raised high, she ignited the dying embers of hope. Though untrained in the art of war, her courage rallied the soldiers, leading them to victory after victory. Yet the light that once saved France was extinguished in cruel flames. The girl hailed as God's messenger was ultimately forsaken, bound to a wooden stake as fire consumed her body. She became a national hero, fated to a tragic end, condemned not for sin, but for the courage that defied the world around her. Known as La Pucelle d'Orléans, her story transcended her death, immortalized as a legend even as she perished in the blaze. There she stood, proud and unyielding, a figure etched forever in the annals of history as the embodiment of faith and courage. Clad in battle-worn armor, her piercing gaze carried the fire of unshakable resolve as she stepped forward into the arena. She was Jeanne d'Arc, the Maid of Orléans, the young heroine who once reignited France's spirit in the depths of despair. The roar of the crowd shook the arena, heralding a clash destined to echo through the ages. Jeanne d'Arc advanced steadily toward the center, her gaze unwavering, each step carrying the weight of the nation she once saved. Opposite her, Wu Zetian stood tall, exuding regal arrogance, her expression carved in stone, radiating the aura of an empress who once ruled with an iron grip. The hero and the empress now faced one another, not as mere women, but as embodiments of power, ambition, and conviction. The arena grew oppressively silent, as if the entire crowd held its breath, waiting for the first move. Wu Zetian stood tall, radiating an aura of dominance, while Jeanne d'Arc readied herself, her eyes blazing with unshakable resolve. Her heart pounded fiercely, not from fear, but from the fire of determination surging through her veins, their gazes locked, sparking the flame of an inevitable clash. Then, with a metallic thud, a gleaming dagger struck the ground between them. Wu Zetian stood with regal authority, her hand extended as though delivering a divine decree. Her words were not merely threats but commands, laden with the conviction that destiny itself bent to her will. She looked upon Jeanne d'Arc with disdain, dismissing her as nothing more than a pebble in the path toward supremacy that soared toward the heavens. Every movement Wu Zetian made radiated dominance, as if the world itself were but a stage for her reign. Wu Zetian stood proudly in the center of the arena, her voice resounding as if it commanded both heaven and earth. With unyielding authority, she ordered Jeanne d'Arc to end her own life and perish as decreed. The crowd was stunned. Silence gave way to murmurs of shock and disbelief at the audacity of a woman who dared demand her opponent's surrender without a single strike. Yet amid the commotion, another powerful voice cut through the noise. Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China, declared with pride that Wu Zetian had every right to speak as she did, for they were the true rulers, emperors whose legacies were etched eternally into history. Qin Shi Huang proclaimed the grandeur of his homeland, declaring China the Middle Kingdom, the very center of civilization and beauty. To him, the emperor stood at the heart of the world, and their command could never be defied. Attention then shifted back to Wu Zetian, her face radiating both conviction and an insatiable thirst for even greater glory. She had already claimed the throne, yet her ambitions clearly reached beyond. As the empress willed her downfall, the command seeped into Jeanne's very being. Her body moved unconsciously, fingers slowly curling around the dagger lying on the ground. The dagger trembling in Jeanne d'Arc's hand seemed to echo the unseen will that had long chained her existence to endless commands. Memories surged within her, of being summoned to Walpurgis by the orders of others, of surrendering her will time and again to voices not her own, and now to Wu Zetian, who loomed before her. That realization cut through the haze of emptiness within, revealing the futility of blind obedience. In the heart of the Walpurgis arena, time itself seemed to halt as Jeanne raised the dagger close, a symbol that her hollow life might end in that fleeting instant. The spectators gasped, struck by the looming downfall of a hero seemingly subdued by Wu Zetian's decree. The empress stood with serene confidence, convinced her dominion was absolute and unshakable. Within the darkness of her inner world, Jeanne felt her heartbeat resound like the drums of war, as though her body itself refused to yield to emptiness. Her breath came in ragged gasps, eyes wide with realization, and for the first time, something different emerged, a desire, a yearning that belonged to her alone. Behind Jeanne's trembling form, the audience began to perceive something different, no longer mere blind obedience, but the stirring of an inner force awakening. To those attuned, it manifested as a vision, a heart shackled by unseen chains, struggling against suffocating bonds. The chains rattled and strained, symbols of the commands and control that had bound her, and in that moment all could sense that the moment of liberation was drawing near. Jeanne's inner cry grew fiercer, her body trembling as if unable to contain the long-buried yearning within. The chains binding her soul rattled violently, symbols of the endless obedience she had endured, yet now she sensed something greater than submission alone. And at last, within the silent arena, she screamed within herself that she must know the truth, a resolve that would become the force to rise and fight back. The dagger that once promised her end now lay shattered on the ground, along with the chains that had bound Jeanne's soul. The Walpurgis arena fell into a stunned silence as the woman who nearly surrendered rose with a gentle yet resolute smile. Her eyes gleamed with clarity, radiating a newfound awareness that she could not die, not by another's command, but by her own resolve to seek truth and a purpose truly her own. Wu Zetian, enraged by Jeanne's refusal to submit, raised her hand with the authority of an empress passing judgment. Petals filled the air, transforming into a storm of blades that rained down like divine punishment. Her voice thundered through the arena, declaring death as the inescapable sentence for the Maid of Orleans. Yet, Jeanne, now charging forward, no longer resembled an empty vessel. Her eyes blazed, her movements surged with purpose, and each step defied the fate imposed upon her. Thousands of flower petals burst into the air, spiraling into a dazzling vortex that cloaked the entire arena, transforming the Walpurgis stage into a heavenly chamber. From within that storm of blossoms, Wu Zetian's silhouette emerged in regal splendor, her aura crushing the space until the audience's breaths caught in their throats. Jeanne's eyes widened, her heart pounding violently, as she realized she was not merely facing an opponent, but the embodiment of a true witch's power, one that would test her newfound resolve to its ultimate limit. Wu Zetian now revealed herself clad in a magnificent combat dress, the sorceress vestments known as Conquest of the Four Barbarians. With a massive halberd in her grasp and a terrifying aura swirling around her, she stood as both empress and witch, her power transcending human limits. Wu Zetian stood with elegance and authority, unveiling her majestic magic vestments, leaving the audience both dazzled and intimidated. The voices of the crowd echoed, proclaiming that such grandeur was worthy of the empress herself. With piercing eyes, Wu Zetian challenged Jeanne, demanding that she reveal her true form before all. In the face of Wu Zetian's overwhelming grandeur, clad in mystical battle garments and wielding sorcery, Jeanne stood simply in her armor, gripping her sword with unwavering resolve. She bore no mystical vestments nor symbols of authority, only the conviction that now blazed within her. Wu Zetian's laughter roared through the Walpurgis arena, a thunderous sound that sent shivers down spines. She was amused, even impressed by Jeanne's resolve to fight armed with nothing but her sword and conviction. The nervous overseer, trembling, finally declared the match begun without further delay. The Walpurgis arena trembled once more as the duel was declared with a resounding call. Round 1, Bout 2, begin. Wu Zetian stood resplendent, her ambition soaring toward the heavens, eyes gleaming with the desire to dominate all. Opposite her, Jeanne d'Arc stared ahead with unwavering resolve, desiring nothing but the will to fight as her true self. This battle was no mere clash of sorcery and steel, but a destined encounter between opposing souls, one that would decide who was truly worthy to remain in Walpurgis.